Hey guys, this is video 4 of putting together your drone kits full kit. So if you got the electronics kit that comes with the CC3D board, the speed controls, the motors, everything, this is going to be the fourth in the series on putting everything together. What you're going to need for this is going to be your assembled kit. We're going to need a battery pack. You're going to have, I want your quad to be here with the motors, but no props on the motors. And what I've done to tell to be able to tell the direction on which way they're spinning is I've just put some masking tape on all the motors. And once we spin these up, you'll be able to see how it's a lot easier to tell which way they're spinning than if you don't have anything on that. And the last thing you're going to need is whatever radio you've got that is going to be controlling your kit there. So normally this is what I fly with, the DX6. So the first thing we're going to do is open up our internet browser. We're going to go to openpilot.org. Go over to Documents and Software. Drop down to Software Downloads. This is a Windows-based machine, so what I'm going to be doing is using the 14.10 Win32 installer here. There, it's finished downloading. I click on my download files. I'm going to single click on the OpenPilot release 14.10. Do you really want to allow this? I'm going to say yes. The language I'm going to use is going to be English. Setup will guide you through the installation. We're going to say next. Yes, I agree. I'm just going to keep with the defaults. I'm not sure what this Mesa OpenGL driver is, but the rest of the stuff I'm just going to keep with the defaults. I'm going to say next. The directory that I'm putting it in, this program file is x86 OpenPilot, that's fine, so I'm going to say install. I guess while that's doing that, the other thing that we are going to need is going to be our USB cable here. One end's USB, and the other end plugs into the back of the OpenPilot board. So I've got that plugged into my computer. Once this comes up, I'll be ready to plug it into the OpenPilot. The wizard helps you. I'm going to say next on the wizard. Windows security comes up. I'm going to say install. Completing the run OpenPilot. Looks like everything's done, so I'm going to click on finish. This is just release notes. You can read through that if you'd like. So we're going to minimize the browser window. The OpenPilot software actually came up and ran. And we're going to go through the vehicle setup wizard, which is going to update the firmware. It's going to go through the entire process automatically for us. So we're going to go through the vehicle setup wizard. It says, warning, you must remove all propellers from the vehicle before proceeding. We've already done that, so we're going to say next. This board actually already has the correct firmware on it, but we're going to go ahead and say upgrade. When I click on that, it says, please connect the OpenPilot to the computer. So I'm going to plug my USB plug in now. Just came up and said that it's uploading the firmware. Going to complete that task. Board updated. Please press next to continue. So we're going to say next. To continue, wizard needs to determine the configuration required for any. Alright, we're going to say next. We're already plugged in and connected to the OpenPilot. For most of you, I think you're going to be using the PWM. What the PWM means is you have a bunch of different wires, different plugs going from your OpenPilot board to your receiver. If you've got like an S-Bus receiver for like Futaba, the Spectrum SAT or something else where it's just one cable that goes from the OpenPilot board to your receiver, you can use that. But we're using the PWM because we have a lot of cables that go from our receiver, or a lot of wires that go from our receiver down to the OpenPilot. So we will keep it with the PWM and say next. We're going to have a multi-rotor, so we make sure that the multi-rotor is selected. This is showing us, this is the layout for the direction of the props. So this is how we want all those motors to spin. Number 1, which is our upper left-hand corner, number 1 and number 3 are going to spin clockwise, while number 2 and number 4 are going to spin counterclockwise. And we'll be checking that down the road. Next, we want our ESC. If you're using our ESCs, we want it to be the rapid ESC, the 490 Hertz update rate. So we'll say next. The first part of the wizard is now complete. All information required to create a basic OpenPilot controller configuration for a specific vehicle has been collected. So we're going to say next. OpenPilot sensor calibration. So what we need to do is make sure for this part that the OpenPilot, or that your board, your quadcopter here, is set up on a table. It's on a level surface. We can't have kids running around or a lot of clunking going on the floor, because when we calculate this out, it's going to sort of calibrate all the gyros. So you want to make sure that everything's really, really nice and stable. So we're going to select calculate. A little green done. So we're going to say next. Next thing is it's going to have us calibrate the ESCs, and this is a little bit tricky, so you got to follow it perfectly. It says as you have selected multi-rotor and fast flash ESC, we need to calibrate the endpoints of these ESCs so they can see the full throttle range sent from the flight controller. This part of the wizard will tell you to connect the battery to your aircraft. Before doing so, make sure that all your propellers are removed. The steps to perform the calibration are as follows. Confirm all safety questions. We're just going to come down here and click yes, yes, and yes. The vehicle is not powered by an external source. I confirm that they have read and understood the above instructions. Press the start button when it becomes enabled, battery not connected. Connect the battery to your airframe. Wait for the ESC calibration beeps. Press the stop button. Wait for the ESC confirmation beeps. Disconnect the battery. Okay, so with our battery unconnected, we're going to check yes to the 3 safety questions. I have removed all the props. The vehicle is not powered by an external power source but the USB. I confirm and have read and understood the above instructions in full. So what we're going to do, with the batteries not connected, we're going to hit start. Now that we've hit start, it's telling us to plug in the battery. So we're going to plug the battery in. The ESCs did the calibration beep, so we're going to click stop. And now if you look, the output, so now it's alright, and then that's all set. Wait for the ESC confirmation beeps, disconnect the battery. So there, now the electronic speed controls have been calibrated to the CC3D board. So we're going to say next. Output calibration. So this is where we're going to set and check the direction spinning for all the motors. Again, 1 and 3, so motors 3, which is back here, and motor 1, those are going to be spinning clockwise, where 2 and 4 we want to spin counterclockwise. So we're going to say next. So here in this step, you will set the neutral rate for the motors highlighted in the illustration to the right. Please pay attention to the details. So when we're ready to go, what we want to do is we're going to have to plug in the battery, and then we're going to come down here and click the start button. Once we've clicked the start button, now we're going to drag this little slider until the motor starts to spin. Now if you look, the picture there shows us that we want it to spin clockwise. And this motor is actually spinning counterclockwise. So to fix that, what we're going to do is 2 of these motor leads need to be swapped. So all I'm going to do is unplug one, unplug the middle one, move those around. Now when I grab the little slider and move it, now I can see that that is actually spinning clockwise. So what you do is you slide this little slider bar until the motor just barely starts to move. And we're going to say stop. We move on to the next one. So now we've got motor 2 up there. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to click on start, move the slider until it starts to move. That one's moving counterclockwise like it should, so we're going to go next. Now we've got motor 3. I'll try to get this one up here on the picture. Motor 3. I'm going to click start, move the slider. That one moving clockwise like it should. And lastly, number 4. So we're going to say next, move on to number 4, which this one should be spinning counterclockwise. So we'll say start, move the slider. That's spinning in the direction it should. So we say next. Now what they do is they've got these pre-setups in here. The one that I recommend is this flying cinema tank. The very first one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Your 7th selection down. It says flying cinema Cinetank MK2. This one I've tested in ours, and this is what we've been running. It's a very, very stable, easy to fly setup. So we're going to choose this. We're going to say next. The wizard is now ready to save the configuration directly to your OpenPilot controller. So we're going to say save. It's done. We're going to say next. Now we're going to go into the transmitter setup. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start the transmitter setup wizard. We're going to come up here and we're going to say next. We're going to choose the acro normal transmitter for fixed wing or quad. We're going to say next. I'm using a mode 2, which has throttle and rudder on the left. If one of these other modes is what you're using, then go ahead and select whichever one is like the radio that you're going to be using. So scroll down, we're going to say next. Now all I've got to do is just move my controller to correspond with what the picture shows. So right now it's having me move the throttle input. So I do that. Now it's having me move the roll input. Now this is for pitch. And now rudder. Now up there it's asking me to move my flight selection mode switch. And then after that, if you have more switches and you want to set up some of your accessory switches, you can select that, or you can just say next and skip on through. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So say next, say next, say next. So now what it has is it says, please center all controls and trims, and press next when ready. So I'm going to move my throttle to the middle. I'm going to make sure everything's all centered, all my switches are centered. I'm going to say next. And now what it wants me, this is calibrating the output. So now I'm going to move everything in the furthest directions. And it wants me to make sure that my throttle, when I move the sticks in a certain direction, it corresponds. So when I move my left thumb left, it wants the picture to match over there. When I move it up or down, it wants that to match. So we're going to say next. I've moved everything to the furthest limits. Now this is where anything that needed to be reversed can be reversed. So when I move my throttle up or when I move my throttle down, if anything here doesn't match what your thumbs are doing, you can reverse it by checking these boxes up here. So we're going to say next.
Time remaining 6 minutes.
It says you have completed the wizard. Please check below. The picture mimics your stick movement. So as I move the sticks around, does everything move the way that I expect it to? Yes, so I'm going to say next. Now what we need to do is set up how we're going to arm the copter. What I like is yaw to the right. So when I select yaw to the right, what that means is that my throttle needs to be all the way down. Here, get it up in here in the picture. My throttle needs to be all the way down. And then when I move it to the right like that, that is when it's armed. Once you've completed that, you come down here and click save. Okay, lastly, what we're going to cover real quick here is just a little bit about the flight mode setting switch, and also going in and recalibrating your attitude sensors. So right now what we're in is the configuration screen. If you come down here to the bottom, you've got these row of these tabs down here. You can go to the flight data. From the flight data switch, this is showing you with the USB plugged into your copter control board or your CC3D board. What this is showing you is what it thinks the sensor is. So if you take off and your copter's flying and it's always a little bit crooked and you're always having to give it some input to get it to be level, what you need to do is come plug it back into your computer and then open up this flight data switch or flight data tab and see if it actually thinks it's level when it's level. If when this is sitting level on a table, if you're sitting off to a corner like this, then something's wrong. So from there, what we would do is go back to the configuration. If you want to calibrate that sensor, we're going to go to the attitude tab right here and then make sure that it's on level ground and then click the level button. Once it goes through, well, we can do it right here. So we'll click level. Once the blue bar gets all the way across, we're going to come down here and we're going to click save. And whenever you click save, what you're looking for is for this green checkbox to appear. If that green checkbox doesn't appear, then it didn't actually save. So right down here, next to the save button, we want that green checkbox to happen. If the green checkbox does not happen, then either the board isn't connected, it doesn't like something. So we've calibrated it, we're level. We'll go back to flight data and we see that it's showing level. We're not spinning or doing anything weird or whatever. The calibration's good. And sometimes just a bad crash or a rough landing can get those sensors to be off by a little bit. So if after a rough landing, if you notice that everything's sort of out of adjustment, or when you take off everything's tweaked a little bit, this is where you can go in and see that data. Lastly, if you click on configuration, we're going to go back to the inputs, and then we're going to go up here and choose flight mode switch settings. What I would recommend if you're a beginner is to set all of these to stabilized 1 and all of the settings bank to bank 1. And then under stabilized 1, make it attitude, axis lock, and then the thrust manual. If you want to do some reading on the OpenPilot forums, if you're an advanced user and you want to try the Ratitude or the rate modes, then go ahead. But this, if you use this attitude, axis lock, and manual, and set all of your switch settings to where you can't accidentally select one of these other ones, you're going to be in good shape. Because from this, now you know you're always going to be in the very, very level, stable mode. So when your sticks return to center, the copter is going to actually return to center. So once you've made sure that all those switch settings are correct, that again under stabilized 1, your attitude, axis lock, and manual, you're going to come down here and click save. We get the green checkbox. And now what these are referring to, the stabilized 1
in bank 1, if we come down over here to stabilization, before when we picked that cinema tank, this is what it was setting up. This is setting up how reactive the copter is. So how either steady or unsteady. If you're ready to do acrobatic flight, this is where you get in there and you can tweak that. And this is settings bank 1, settings bank 2, settings bank 3. So if you want to make some adjustments and set some switches on your transmitter to be able to change between the different modes and the different banks here, what you can do is you could try a bank 2 or a bank 3 just as a trial setting and see, you know, okay, I made some adjustments here to bank 2, I'm going to switch over to bank 2, try flying it around, and then you can switch back to bank 1. But again, I wouldn't do any of that until you're really, really good at flying it around just in the basic settings that we've set up. So until you can fly that thing around, fly at you, fly left, fly right, you're no longer crashing and you feel really, really, really comfortable with it, I would leave all of this on. And again, once you start adjusting this, just go to openpilot.org. There's a ton of forums on different settings, different adjustments, what all of these do. If you highlight over them, this will tell you, it gives you a little bit of a pop-up, and it explains the setting a little bit, but there's a lot more information on the forums. So hope all of this helps. Hope you enjoy flying, and thank you very much.
Okay, lastly, this is the very last step before we can go out and fly, and this is just a little bit about the differences in propellers and installing the propellers. There's 2 different propellers, one for each direction that the motor spins. This one here is a clockwise turning propeller. A lot of them are marked with, this is going to have the size on it, which is a 9x45R, and R is for reverse, because the clockwise is backwards of what a normal airplane propeller spins. And the reason that this is set up and designed to run clockwise is if you look at the shape of it, it is designed to scoop air and force it downward when that propeller is turning clockwise. So that one is going to go either in position 3 or 1, and then our counterclockwise spinning propeller is just a mirror image of the other propeller. It's marked with just a 9x by 4.5, so a 9 by 4.5. And what this one's designed to do is scoop air and push it downward when it's spinning counterclockwise. So we're going to remove the masking tape from our prop shaft here. Put a counterclockwise rotating propeller here. We've got the prop washer, got the prop nut, go ahead and tighten that down, and then I've got a 1.5mm Allen wrench. We're going to take the 1.5mm Allen wrench, put it through the hole here in that prop nut, and use that for a little bit extra leverage to tighten it up. And then there are also 2 tiny set screws to keep that from spinning off. So we're going to take our 1.5, we're going to tighten down the one, tighten down the other, and there we're all set. Do that to the other 3, and then we're ready to go fly. And there you go. All 4 props are on, and we are ready to go out to fly. Here's the latest one I've been working on, and this one I've actually got the, I'm trying a KK board in it. So tomorrow when I head out to fly, I'm also hoping to give this one a try. I've got shorter arms on it, and like I said, we're going to give the KK board a try and see what we can do with that. So, but this is using an automotive paint and just several sandings in between to try to get it that nice gloss.